Hey everybody, it's Alex Miller at Capneon here. What could I be talking about this morning but DeepSeek? What is DeepSeek? A Chinese company released a new large language model that's pretty good, both on these various benchmark tests people use and the community of AI lovers tinkering with it has been impressed. And what's a pretty big deal is that they had a number of innovations in how they trained it and did not have to lean on specialized hardware as much as everyone believed. From a purely AI standpoint, this is pretty big news. A cool innovation in training a model could turn out to be a really big deal. It could turn out not to be. To the extent it's not a big deal, people are innovating all the time. There are new and better models all the time. It's not totally clear to me that this is some kind of halcyon shift in how these things are done. From a geopolitical perspective, or by extension, an economic perspective, DeepSeek is a really huge deal and probably the reason the stock market will be freaking out today. If you follow politics and kind of the geopolitics around AI, the US and China have some rivalry going. China has long been very strong in AI, and people in the United States were hoping that we could leverage our dominance of the market for these specialized chips in order to sustain a lead over China in cool cutting edge AI models. And DeepSeek is one data point that might not work. In that there have already been curbs and restrictions on exporting those kinds of chips. I believe it's relatively hard to get them in China. And it didn't stop this Chinese company from putting out a really cutting edge, cool new model. There are some notable things about how they trained it. In particular, that they leaned to some degree on existing large language models in some of the later phases of refining their own model. And I think it's worth vaguely abstracting from this. There's a whole lot of ways in which the cat is out of the bag on LLM. A lot of people have access to LLM. A lot is known at broad strokes about how you build an LLM. And you can see in this training innovation that, well, there's just a whole lot to work with there to get around these issues with chips. I think under discussed also was that, well, apparently this Chinese company had a big stash of chips that they hoarded up before some of the restrictions on import export went into place. And it's hard to know with confidence exactly all the things that went on, all the techniques that were used. But I will say that they have been upfront and open about their training methods, and the world seems to appraise them as interesting, plausibly an interesting breakthrough. It's also worth noting, and this is another data point about, like, was this plan to restrict chips ever really a great plan? It falls through the cracks a little, yet it's pretty important. What part of the whole process do you need these special chips and special hardware for? And the story is very often for training the model. If you already have a model someone else trained, you can typically run that with much more pedestrian hardware. And people often run various pretty cutting edge models on a nice laptop these days. The function of these cutting edge chips in training is really to speed things up. And even with the speed up, it can take weeks to train a nice new LLM from raw data. And I can not help but point out here, this plan to restrict AI progress with restricting chips is really just a plan to slow people down. And there's not a real impregnable moat here. As I've discussed elsewhere, necessity is the mother of invention. Throughout history, innovation is really the province of people that are kind of screwed and have to think sideways to get someplace, and not the province of people that have mountains of money to do things the way that everybody already understands that they should be done. So, why can't China come up with some innovations to train things faster that doesn't require chips? And we put them in a position where they've got incentives and we kind of taunted them to do it. And DeepSeek is a data point that maybe they can do it. On to the stock market. People love narratives. Wall Street needs a narrative on why the stock market should go up. And lately it's been AI. It's especially true that if American companies dominate AI, they're going to do really well and their stocks should go up and the stock indexes should go up. And isn't that wonderful? But then if people all over the world are finding ways to get on the AI game and a company like OpenAI doesn't build a moat and charge everyone a lot for it, that's a totally different game. So the stock market, I think, had gone up a lot on the hope of American companies dominating AI, and that looks a little bit less plausible today. So the American stock market is freaking out in a bad way, and the Chinese stock market is doing a glow up. And I don't know if these things will last, but these AI breakthroughs trickle through to a lot of things. They trickle through to geopolitics, and then they trickle through to economics as well. So I think if you're even just some rando that's saving for your retirement, DeepSeek is a pretty interesting story. And a lot of people watching these videos will have a lot of other reasons to be interested as well.